John Pears, P-E-A-R-S, of Eastman Perkins, and his co-architect is Mark Boyce Watson. One would think Mark Boyce Watson wouldn't need help, but in this case he has reached out to Mr. Pears. They have collaborated successfully in the design of the former King School on Putnam Avenue. The remaining issues before the board, in addition to the height, involve the setbacks. The overlay district allows for modification or adjustment to setbacks, and in the case of this location, there is some relief being sought in terms of front setbacks, and again, the architects will walk you through where that is occurring. But the overall issues involve the front setback by way of special permit, the bulk plane and the height to 80 feet, and also the issue involving the parking. We're proposing a parking ratio here of 0.5. It's a proposed 46-unit development with 23 parking spaces, and we'll provide you with the details of where those are located. The project does conform with the bicycle requirements as recently modified for the residential portion of the building, both in terms of the long-term bicycle and the short-term bicycle parking, which is a new component of bicycle parking. There's also retail bicycle parking that has a long-term and a short-term element. We're able to meet the long-term retail requirement, but the short-term retail bicycle parking, frankly, we've run out of room for bicycles, but there are, we're abutted by public parking lots, and there are ample bicycle opportunities there as well. That, I think, probably represents everything that's before you in terms of this application. It is not, perhaps worth noting, it is not an Article 19 project because of its size. It's below the threshold, so I know many of you eagerly await the traffic engineer's presentation. There isn't one this evening, not because we haven't looked at traffic issues, but those features are not, those elements are not part of the special permit application that we have here today based upon the size of the building.
This is the view, the existing view from Mass Ave, and this building here has some opportunity for upgrade, so you'll see as we go forward that we plan at this lower level to reconfigure this, and within the depth of only a foot or two create some shadow box type glazed storefront system that can actually have advertising and be lit and actually start continuing the streetscape around to connect to the new building. Views from Bishop Allen, you can see some of the fire escape stairs on the back that we're going to be enclosing into the building, and the mural which we will slightly overlap. Looking back from Bishop Allen, the base of the building, we have the transformer to deal with over here and the garage entrance to deal with over here. So what we've done is felt that if we use a really upgraded material, in this case the slivered slate material, a little bit more recessed because it is slightly less public, is the entry to 10 Essex. I think that some of the lines in this building pick up some of the lines of the existing and generally start creating setbacks that are consistent with the guidelines so that one doesn't produce flat facades. The roofscape we are going to be using as part of our open space requirement by providing a common patio, and in order to do that we brought up both stairs as well as the elevator and provided a small glass vestibule just to get out of the elevator and not get snow going down. In order to do that, we've provided a green roof as an amenity, visual amenity for the users, and then screened the mechanical spaces behind the core. The majority of the building, as you saw, is set back to start off with, and then gets further set back. So much of it is 5 feet or 10 feet, or in places 15 feet set back, and then sets back further. So the bulk of the building, we are asking for some bike parking relief, the reduction primarily of the 3 short-term spaces required for the retail. It's a small site and we need every inch of it, and bike parking spaces take up quite a lot of space, and the sidewalks are very narrow, and there's a lot of bike parking just at the end of Essex, and we felt that that possibly that was a reasonable request. And you can see how this is essentially a mid-block development that if anything else was built would then come down again to 45 feet at Bishop Allen and maintain that existing scale of 4 and 5 stories along Mass Ave.
The adjacent city parking lot. As I recollect the Central Square plan, there's the parking lots are thought to be a resource that might help. This one is pretty small. It's bounded by, now, on this project by 2 Nagar. Has any consideration been made to maybe building on that parking lot, over that parking lot?
There was a considerable amount of effort and thought put into the location of the core of this building, with the intention being that a second phase of this building could be realized, and it would be extremely efficient that the second phase could rely upon the core, our elevator core, our egress core, our garage entry, and that if the city at some point went into a disposition process on that smaller parking lot, because frankly, Ms. Clippinger, when we met with her first comment to me is, why don't you build on the parking lot as well? Mm-hmm. We said, well, we do want to get started soon, and we think it may take some time to develop consensus on that issue. But both Mr. Piers and Mr. Boyce Watson, in designing the building, both in terms of, maybe we could show first the garage, the low of the garage, how one could get down that ramp, and then
If you want me to describe it.
yeah,
So
that'd probably be best.
The way that the ramp system works, and we had many variations in order to get it to work well, and I think this one does it the best, and that is if that opportunity ever arose, that same entrance could bring you down to this location, and this could be a blank out panel in line with that driveway, and we've kept all other types of things out of that way, which would mean that other lot is quite small, so it would be very difficult to get underground parking in any other way other than via this. And so those 3 spaces would disappear and land up in the garage next door. And so at that level it works, and then at the upper levels, I think it's even more significant. It's hard to understand the core discussion as much as you can see it here. So with all the required 50 feet dead-end corridors being met over here, we have stair number 2. Stair number 1 is intentionally positioned at the corner of that building closest to that lot, so that corridor could continue down, and being only 82 feet to Bishop Allen, with a 50-foot dead-end corridor minus the end units, you could actually use this. The potential even exists for the trash room to become a second elevator, so that building would be expandable if that opportunity arose.
Excellent.
And I think from the
Better
city,
answer than I expected.
and from the city perspective, I think, we are pleased that there's nothing that precludes us. In fact,
Can't hear.
I'm sorry, I think from the city perspective, we support the fact that there's nothing in this that would preclude development of the lot. Obviously, if there were a desire on the part of the community and the city council to go ahead with that, it is a fairly long process between both 30B and 2.110. In fact, the 8 o'clock hearing is going to be that part of the process for Ames Street, which is the first time the city's done something like this in a number of years, by going back to the firehouse. So, however, I think I would expect that the issue of parking lots will be standing, but the city council will be looking at in 2014, if I had to predict.
My name is Carol O'Hare, O''H''A''R''E. I too applaud the architects for a lively, interesting building that's not too, not excessive, and different. I was concerned about the parking, because what's happening here is that 28 spaces, we're talking, nobody has mentioned, and the speakers did not mention that 28 spaces are being removed, and only half the required spaces are being included in this building. And that is ideal if people are going to have bikes or walk. But the problem is you're encouraging ground floor retail, the city is, and effectively removing what would be 51 spaces, because the city would require 1 space instead of a half a space per unit. So you have a deficiency of 51 spaces, 28 for the people who are looking around for parking spaces, circling Central Square, and as you remove the parking lots, what are the people going to do who are shopping in the retail stores and going to the restaurants and going to the clubs? Is Cambridge just going to be for Cambridge? Is it just going to be for Central Square? People are not, I mean, in the long term, maybe it will work, but what about the short term and the people who live in that neighborhood, who are going to be inundated with cars circling Central Square? So the question is, where are the cars that will inevitably be attracted to this building, both by the cars of the residents, as well as the displaced cars from that parking lot? Where will they put their cars? That's the question. And as I said, 20 years from now, that may work, but people who are living there now need some relief, and I don't live there. Thank you.
My name is Nancy Ryan. I live at 4 Ashburton Place in Cambridge, which is a little dead end about a half a block past Bishop Allen Drive. So I'm fairly close to an abutter. The reason there was some confusion is that Mr. Rafferty and Mr. Nagar and the architects know from comments last night that there has been absolutely no consultation whatsoever with the neighborhood. There are 2 neighborhood groups that are listed on the Community Development website, Essex Street Neighbors, of which I'm the president, and the Area 4 Neighborhood Coalition, which has been around for 30 years. And all of our email addresses and phone numbers and everything are all listed on the website. So there was no outreach to any of us. I also spoke with the owners of 99 Bishop Allen Drive, which is the red brick building that you see right across Bishop Allen Drive from this site, looking at it. And they knew nothing about this until I let them know this was happening. So that's why, because we were kind of blindsided by this, we wanted the opportunity to sit as neighbors with the planners, the developers, the architects, to talk about this without necessarily having to talk about it before we tried to see what agreements we could come to.
My name is James Williamson. I live at 1000 Jackson Place. First of all, last night at the Central Square Advisory Committee meeting, there was ample opportunity for public comment, which I appreciated. I explicitly asked during the information section whether anybody in the room had any information about the city-owned parking lot, and the answer came back from everybody. There was nothing. So it's interesting to hear tonight that there was a conversation with Sue Clippinger, although of course she wasn't speaking officially for the city. So, that was a bit of a concern to me.